And then there were two, Wisconsin and Iowa, for Nebraska to finish the regular season. This is the Pick 6 podcast. I'm Evan Bland with Sam McKewon and Tom Shatel, the Omaha World-Herald as usual. And Nebraska's still stuck on 5 wins. And, man, has it been a couple weeks here for Nebraska. New offensive coordinator. Tension continues to rise in the program. Are you guys feeling it here with 2 weeks to go in the regular season, just the stakes that seem to be on the line for Nebraska right now?
The spectrum between if they were to win the last 2 games or they were to lose the last 2 games, the spectrum between the fan satisfaction is somewhere around 99% satisfaction and something in the teens satisfaction. So, there's a wide range here. And that was probably true last year, but I think last year people were more understanding and accepting of those defeats. I think this year they will be less so. And so if this team finishes 7-5 and we're sitting here on, December 2nd or 3rd previewing the recruiting class, and this is a 7-5 football team, we're having a really robust and very positive conversation. If we're sitting here at 5-7 on December 2nd or 3rd talking about the recruiting class, I think we're probably having a different and not quite as, we're going to be like, well, Nebraska's going to win the offseason again, but we don't know what's coming. So these next 2 games, specifically this game on Saturday, is very, very important in the Matt Rule era. He even said as much. He said this is one of the most important games that I've coached. I think he meant that. And I think he hired Dana Holgorsen in part because he knew this was going to be an important game. So, yeah, I think it feels important this week, definitely.
What do you think, Tom? How big is this just in the scheme of things for Nebraska football?
I'm just kind of numb to the whole program right now. I mean, every year I feel like we when are they going to do this? I don't know. Just hurry up and do it. How's that? Yeah, it's big. But I don't think it'd be good to beat Iowa. I'm not counting on that. I think if they win this week, it's like a huge deep breath, exhale. You go at 6, you go to a bowl, you beat Wisconsin, you knock off 2 things that have been on the list forever. But I don't know. I just I think it. But I get the atmosphere, the vibe I'm feeling is, okay, hurry up and do it, whatever. I mean, people are fired up, but they're not as fired up. I think people are just tired. They're excited, but they're like, okay, I've been through this before, so just go do it, show me. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but that's what I'm feeling.
I got vibes of 2 years ago when Wisconsin came to Lincoln. That was a pretty bad Wisconsin team that was beat up, and they still found a way to rally late and edge Nebraska at the gun. And here they are again, right? Like they have a new offensive coordinator. They don't even know who it is. Luke Fickell's not going to tell us who's calling plays this weekend.
Why does it matter?
Yeah, that's right. Boy, that was a testy. I mean, talk about, as much as we've compared Nebraska and Wisconsin, how different were those press conferences with Fickell being very standoffish, vague, and Matt Rule kind of on the opposite end of that thing, laying it all out there, why it was. Dana Holgorsen then speaks this week. I mean, very different approaches to 2 programs in similar spots.
Media approaches don't win football games. I will say that.
Sure.
However, I think as it relates to Wisconsin, that was a whiff from Fickell. Because I don't think anybody in that room really was like, oh, Phil Longo, how could you let him go? I don't think anybody felt that way. And yet when Fickell went in there, it was almost like he was ready for a fight with the media about why he let this guy go. And it just felt like a miss. Like all he would have had to have said is, you could have even said, listen, it's a collaborative process. We're probably going to pick one guy who actually says the play, but all of us are going to weigh in. I know you guys want to know who that is, but at the end of the day, it's going to be a bunch of different people, and I don't want to single anybody out. That would have resolved it. But the minute he made the face, and he made that face, and he goes, why does it matter? I'm like, oh, what's this? This is new. And so I think it kind of set things on a unique course this week for Wisconsin. Certainly they're doing a circle the wagons kind of thing, and, the program is a program and all that. It speaks to what's going on up there. I don't know that it has much bearing on what Nebraska's doing. And Nebraska, if they can play the best football game Nebraska knows how to play, can win on Saturday. I don't feel like we've seen Nebraska play the best football game it can play since Colorado. And even then, they made mistakes in the second half. So, Nebraska's got to focus on being the best it can be. And I felt like once we talked to Holgorsen yesterday, and I really liked what he had to say, it felt like you're bringing in like a script doctor or some guy from Hollywood. Hey, we're going to bring in the good screenwriter to fix this stuff and look at all the flaws. It felt like they finally brought somebody in who yesterday said the thing out loud that most of us have either been thinking or have written about the two positions on that offensive side of the ball that have underachieved under Matt Rule. He said it out loud. And we didn't even I think one of the questions was, what do you think of the run game? And the other one was what do you think of the perimeter blocking? And then he just took it from there.
He did. So Dana Holgorsen talks for 15 minutes on Tuesday. Blunt, candid, insightful, interesting, as he has been throughout most of his coaching career. What did you hear, Tom, in that press conference that affected, if anything, your outlook for what the offense can be the rest of the season?
Well, I guess it was kind of a good news, bad news thing. The good news was, he said what what everybody, I guess, has wanted to hear. We're sitting here still analyzing his press conferences. I feel like we've been doing this every year with different coaches, and I just want to see some on the field. And maybe we will Saturday finally. I heard if there's a magic to Dan Holgorsen, it's attention to detail, which we don't hear very often, if ever. Now Rule has done some of that, but I feel like, okay, this guy's got a handle on it. Somebody's got a handle on this thing, and maybe he can get fixed. The other side of that is, you're right. He brought up those things when he was asked about the running game, and it was almost like a last question. What do you think about the receivers group? And he answered it, and it was great. Pointing out the flaws, but these are not just playing flaws; these are also coaching flaws. And it made me think, what else? What other flaws are on this coaching staff that we don't know? We're not, we see it, but we're not sure who's responsible for it. It just made me think, what else is out there? You know what I mean? It's like, okay, he found these two. What else is he finding? It gave me confidence in him. It didn't give me a lot of confidence in the offensive coaching staff. Why haven't they been doing this stuff? Why haven't they been coaching like him? And maybe they have, and they just got away from it. But if you're doing things right all the time, you don't get away from it. So it just makes me think they haven't been doing things the right way all along. So, and it finally took somebody with his chops, his background to come in and just say, start doing this, or you're not getting the ball, or do this or that. You're not. Has that been said before? I guess maybe, but maybe he can get it done. So. I got confidence out of it, Evan, but at the same time, it made me think there might need to be a shakeup after the season, or at least a reevaluation. And if they're 5-7, I guarantee you there will be. But hopefully they'll be 6-6 at least, and we can move on the field and bowl games and so on and so forth. So I think this team's capable. This is a bowl team. I don't think I've said all along 6-6, 7-5 is the ceiling, kind of where we are. I think this should be a bowl team, and it'll be a letdown if it's not.
I was reading, a couple different stories about Curt Cignetti this week, And, of course, they're 10-0, and they're pacing Ohio State, and he's done an incredible job in his first year. Let's be honest. It's been really good. One of the advantages he had, and I'm not making an excuse for Rule here, but one of the things that Cignetti was able to do, and a bunch of the people within the program have said this, is that he was able to bring guys from James Madison that he already knew were the kind of players he wanted. And so when he brought guys in, it was like, yeah, we're just going to go ahead and use these guys, and we're going to move some guys out that I don't like. And that's an advantage that he had. So, like, he was able to bring players with him that already fit his culture so that when he didn't necessarily have to worry quite as much about losing some guys because he already knew he had guys with him. And I think one of the things that happened with Rule is, A, the quarterback they brought in last year wasn't good. I mean, there's no other way to put it. He's a bad guy. He's a good guy, but he wasn't a good player on the field, and so it was very hard to hold him accountable right away. Players, look at that and they're going, this is the guy you brought in, and he's terrible. And so, like, there was that issue, and then there was also when you come into a program, you have to try to win over some of the guys because you can't just run everybody off. And so I think there was a natural situation where it's like, hey, we've got to work with the guys we've got. We've got to do some things with these guys. But it just seems to have curdled a little bit this season. For whatever reason, Jamal Banks and Isaiah Nayor are good players, but they didn't do as much as I think people thought they would, especially as blockers. And so it was helpful for Holgorsen to come in, albeit 9 games into the season, be able to see, why are you guys not blocking worth a crap? And he was able to say it probably just like that.
Right.
Because that's what he said to us. I'm sure he said something even stronger to them.
Probably more colorfully, yeah.
And so, I think it sometimes you wish it didn't come to that. Sometimes that happens when you have a young coaching staff. And let's be honest, it's young. And sometimes it's hard for really young guys who are relatively new to the profession to say the hard things that they need to players who are not that much younger than them. And so Holgorsen may well, if he decides to stay on as offensive coordinator, he may well have guys that he wants to bring in to coach some of those positions. You just never know.
Well, that's the balance you have with Matt Rule right now is, again, if we talked about this before, at least I have, if they'd have tried to hire Kurt Cignetti, if Trev Alberts had tried to hire him 2 years ago, okay, we're going to get this guy from James Madison. He's going to bring in 27 transfers. He's going to bring in 10 guys from James Madison, and the quarterback's coming from Ohio U. There would have been a riot on 9th and Q. I mean, people would have been saying, are you out of your mind? You can't bring this guy to Nebraska. I guarantee you, people would not have been happy at all with that hire. Well, look what happened. There's a balance. People look at that now because you're in the middle of a rebuilding thing. Hurry up. I've been waiting 10 years. Hurry up. Look at Indiana. Look at Colorado now. We beat Colorado. Well, look at that. Well, there's a balance. And you've got to understand that what's going on right now with bringing in Holgorsen and his coaching staff, they may be the guys, they may not be the guys. Matt Rule came out of the NFL. He didn't know he didn't have a staff that was going to come with him. He didn't have players that were going to come with him. He didn't even know what the transfer portal was all about. A lot of us didn't. NIL, he had to get up to speed on a lot of stuff in real time. So you have to give him that. You have to allow for that. And this coaching staff was put together very quickly, and we don't know if it's a Big Ten capable staff or not.
Do you think it is a Big Ten capable?
Well,
staff?
Not necessarily. I want to see. We're not going to see much more, but
on defense, I would say it is.
Yeah, but
based on the results,
not
based on the people, but the results.
But the results haven't been great on defense every week either. They have not gotten off the field. They've not been good enough, and a lot of that is personnel. Okay, let's just say it. It's personnel. College football is about players. And they got to go out and they got to get some other players. And I think they need to go in the portal a little bit more than they have. Now they're bringing in some guys, call them dudes now. Barry Switzer used to call them difference makers. I've got difference makers. I got more difference makers than Osborne. Now, he always said that. And now they're called dudes. Well, they don't have as many dudes as a lot of teams do. But it isn't always about dudes. Is the Indiana quarterback a dude? He's a guy who makes plays. So that's what. Yeah, and again, other thing about the schedule, they've run into a lot of. Tony White has teams with older quarterbacks.
Yes.
Illinois, Indiana, UCLA. Guys have been around 5 years, 4 or 5 years, 6 years, whatever. Nebraska doesn't have that. Now they, one day maybe they will, and Raiola's career, we'll see. But that's another thing in this era of portal. You want to get old. That's the saying. You need to get older. You need to get old. And so I think Rule could use a little old and go out and get some old this year. And there's going to be some holes that have to get patched up. Patch them up with some experience. That's the balance in building. You can't just build. Okay, we're like 4 years here to build. No, people don't want that. They want to have a little hope now. So add some portal in there along with building. So he's trying to figure this out as he's going. But it's the second year. I think he's a smart guy. I think he should have it figured out by now.
The Holgorsen element is interesting to me. What I took away from the press conference was, okay, we knew that Nebraska was shaking things up with a new play caller, with a guy who has experience, but it's also shaking things up because of who Holgorsen is. And I mean, he came out and said, hey, in halftime of the USC game, I said to the running backs coach, hey, your backs should go through the holes when they're this big. And he sets his hands shoulder length apart. And he says, yeah, I told the player, the receivers, why haven't you guys been blocking worth of crap on the perimeter, and you're not going to get the ball? Like, that'll affect people, right? Like, that kind of shakes you out of your I don't know, out of your malaise a little bit.
But is it too late? I mean, it was something that could have been more beneficial back in October. There's 2 weeks left. How much can a tiger change its stripes in 2 weeks?
Sure.
Are old habits going to break in 2 weeks?
We saw better perimeter blocking. We saw a little bit of change in personnel, and Holgorsen kind of teased that on Tuesday too. He said, hey, maybe I found a young guy on offense who's going to have a bigger role on Saturday.
It's not about play calling. It's just that's what yesterday screamed at me, and I loved it. I think play calling is overrated. I think scheme is overrated. It's about players, and it's about how you do things. And that was always the secret to Nebraska football. They did things better than anybody else, and they didn't have the best talent. They had good talent, but they just did things better and more efficiently than anybody else. So I've said that about Pelini and Riley and Frost, and now here we are. Maybe Holgorsen could get this thing going. I hope so, but I think it's about execution. That's what I heard yesterday.
Yeah, I think it's so interesting that Rule. You're right. He could have hired other people to come in and do this mechanic role, right?
Sure, yes.
He hired a person who is known for being outspoken, not only in press conferences, but with his players. Maybe not quite as outspoken as Mike Leach used to be, but very outspoken. So in other words, part of what he's doing is just like, I'm going to hire a guy that comes in and tells you you're ish, so to speak. And in doing so, we're going to change the culture of the program because we tried some other way for 21 games, and that didn't work. And that's what it feels like. It feels like, because what did he say after Holgorsen came in? He's like, I tried to fix it. I couldn't fix it. Dana will fix it. It's almost like what they need to fix is the offensive players have to kind of like be jarred into, guys, you got to play better. And we can't keep telling you nice anymore. We're going to bring in this guy who's he's not Bo Pelini. He doesn't have a vein sticking out of his neck, but he's going to say it in a way, and it's going to be real clear, real fast, what you guys need to do in order to play better. And I did feel like, and Tom's right, it is how it looks. I felt like it looked a little better against USC. And then I agree with Tom again. I just think USC had more dudes. I do. I think they have good players. And I think they have a head coach who, for reasons that only he can explain, refuses to run the ball 45 times a game. Because if they did, they'd have more wins. because they're good running the ball. I mean, they kind of kicked Nebraska's butt. And you notice that Matt Rule did not lay into his run defense. He laid into his pass defense, but he didn't lay into his run defense. Because I think what Matt Rule was saying is if these guys are running the ball 45 times a game, it'd be pretty hard to beat. And I think he's right. And Lincoln Riley, for whatever reason, has just not been willing to do that. They have not run the ball, USC, more than 35 times against any Big Ten opponent. If they ran it more, they'd probably have more wins. But I just thought USC had more dudes, and I think as a result, Nebraska lost. I thought Nebraska played pretty well. Not great, but pretty well. Like, not as good as they played against Ohio State, but pretty well. And maybe they'll get a much better performance this week against a team like Wisconsin, who does not have as many good players as USC. They just don't.
Well, they better play. I mean,
yeah,
because the pretty well doesn't get you anywhere in the Big Ten. It doesn't get you anywhere in college football. You got to play well. You got to play good. Play well. Play very well.
It's going to be a first to 17 kind of game this weekend. I mean, you've got two new offensive coordinators.
Maybe.
I think it probably
it's not going to be a shootout.
I think the Wisconsin thing is fascinating to me, and I know I'm going to write about this for Saturday. It's the Lucy Charlie Brown thing. Here we go again. But they're a mess, and you could see it in Luke Fickell's press conference. Ever since he got there, he's been the outsider. He was hired, and Barry Alvarez, the godfather of Wisconsin, didn't know he was being hired. They thought they were gonna hire Jim Leonard, the favorite son of everybody in Wisconsin. Everybody wanted him, and it was kind of like a backdoor thing. I think Wisconsin beat Minnesota, or did they lose? I can't remember. They beat Nebraska. I can't remember the last game.
They lost to Minnesota.
They lost to Minnesota, but they thought, okay, he's taking them to a bowl. He's the guy. He's the obvious choice. And then they brought in Luke Fickell, and it shocked everybody. I remember it was the Sunday after they hired Rule here. And ever since that point, Evan, the world of Wisconsin has been. I mean, there's been I'm sure a lot of fans were excited they hired Fickell, but there has been sort of this backcurrent going against him. Like, you're not a Wisconsin guy. You're not this. You're bringing in the air raid. That's not Wisconsin. And so he's been fighting. I think some of the voices are out there. They're the forces against him. I think he just snapped the other. Maybe he snapped before. I just felt like he's hearing it more and more as they've been losing, and they had to get rid of his coordinator. And now Alvarez has gone public with some of his of his whatever you want to call grievances. I mean, this is Bill Callahan, Nebraska, all over again.
I was just going to say,
with Scott Frost coming on the radio, they're killing the program. They're tearing down everything that we ever built. This is Nebraska in 2004. The Turner Gill press conference when he stepped away. It just people were, that's where Wisconsin is right now. So what's their headspace? The players pick up on everything the coaches are doing, and they always follow suit. And so the vibe of Wisconsin's going down here, and they always beat Nebraska. Well, we don't have to show up. We always beat these guys. It won't take a maximum effort. So we'll see what happens. It's very fascinating. But Nebraska, man, it's lined up in a pretty good spot. So can they block? Can they tackle? Can they kick? Can they catch? Can they run? Can they just win a football game the way you're supposed to win it? And I think they can. But I don't know yet if I'm going to pick it.
Right. That's the psychological piece that Matt Rule keeps hammering, too, is like, we're not cursed. It's not predestined that we're going to lose to Wisconsin. It's about, hey, if we have a cover 2 call, like, our safety should be in cover 2. If it's cover 4, like, run that play. And I think that's what you got to keep hammering if you're Nebraska, because these streaks keep mounting, and it just keeps getting bigger and bigger. And if you're a player, that's all you hear about. Like, it's got to come back to the execution of what's going on. Yes. Like, that's all it has to be.
Yesterday, Holgerson came in there, just "Hi guys, how you doing?" He was great. He didn't have any no pretense. He didn't big time anybody. He was just a regular kind of guy, small town Iowa. Very grateful for Matt Rule. Very, very proud of Nebraska tradition. Very happy to be part of it. Blah blah blah. It was great. But it just, again, it makes me think. What should you have to tell a running back to go through the hole? I mean, should you have? I mean, you know what I mean? If you're a running back, go. But I think they needed to be reminded. There's some bad habits here. So, execution. It's not too late, but because we've seen it. Haven't we seen it early in the season? Haven't we seen a good Nebraska offense? I know they're playing UTEP. I know they're playing Northern Iowa. Haven't we seen a team that knew how to score points?
Yeah, I think that we saw a good passing offense. I think the run offense has been a struggle all year. But yes, I mean, I think variety of reasons, Nebraska's offense has regressed. I think Holgerson's going to try to fix it. As it relates to the running backs, it's a heck of a point. How is it that you can miss holes? Well, I think two of the things that I've seen, and this has been for a number of years now, it's my opinion. I'm not a coach or former player or any of that, but one, the guys don't have a level of patience when they're running zone plays. And a gap play is one thing. A zone play is another. You have to have a little bit of patience. You have to have a little cadence as you get into the hole. And you can't run 100 miles an hour into all of them, because a lot of times you're going to run into the backs of your own linemen. And I feel like Nebraska lacks patience. And then the other thing is, I think they're kind of taught to run just 100 miles an hour with both hands over the ball, like this. Don't you dare fumble.
Mm-hmm.
And when you fumble or when you run like that, it's actually kind of hard to set up holes, because you need your balance, you need your arms, you need to be able to do a bunch of things. Their ball security last year was an issue. I think it was mostly an issue with the quarterbacks, but as a result, I think you got a lot of Larry Zonkas running through there. I mean, people remember Larry Zonka. He had the little thing on his helmet because you didn't want to break his nose, because he would run with both arms. There's a little bit of that going on. Like they're running hard. Nobody's questioning the effort, but they're running like they're not picking up their feet. And so, like, I think it's part of how they've been taught. And I also think, again, as I've said this before, Matt Rule had his whisk in the kitchen. And so, like, he was impressing a lot on these younger coaches. He's, hey, like, you need to do this, this, and this. I think Holgerson's going to come in. And I think part of the dance between he and Rule is Holgerson's going to have to tell Rule, God, go be a CEO. I'll take care of this. I'll fix it. Just let me do it, though. Let me do it my way, and let me teach these guys the way we want them taught, and we'll play better offense. And I think that's going to help work. I think some of it is Rule's maybe got to get the whisk out of the kitchen and accept that that's just not his strength, is offensive football in 2024. It wasn't his strength when he was coaching the Panthers, and it wasn't really his strength for the first 21 games at Nebraska. So I think he's getting out of the kitchen a little bit, and he's letting Holgerson go in with his recipes.
Another thing Rule spoke at length about on Monday that we can touch on here too, guys, is it's senior day for Nebraska, but as Rule said, it's also the end of an era, in the sense of these rosters are going to go down to 105 next year, and that affects everybody, but it's unique to Nebraska in the sense of the history of what its walk-on program has been, how so much of the program's history was based on larger rosters and practice stations and things like that. How big a deal is that, do you guys think, that this is sort of the end of one model, the start of another? Is it really going to be all that different for Nebraska? Yes or no? What do you guys think?
Well, it's a big deal around here because it's there's a generation of fans who do remember the impact, not just the team but the whole state. When a small town kid could wear the uniform and be a Husker, there's a pride that goes with that. It just resonates throughout everywhere. This kid's from here, this kid's from there, and now look, there could still be walk-ons. I think he could still save 5 spots. Mm-hmm. Not gonna, not gonna. necessarily tip the scales if you don't have all 105 scholarship guys. But so you can still save a few spots for guys to come in and walk on and make the team. But that doesn't really have the impact of an army of walk-ons. It's just they become a force in practice. The effort you see every day from these guys, that's the best thing about the walk-ons. Their best contribution was what they did every day. It's showing up with, Rudy, wanted to wear the Notre Dame uniform. He lived for that. That's what these guys in Nebraska did. They lived for the uniform and be able to be out there on that field every day. And when you're a big time player and you're a full scholarship, sometimes it's hard to get up every day. But when you see those walk-ons out there pushing you, there's just something about that. So it's going to be different. We're entering the portal hadn't even started yet, and the revenue sharing hadn't even started yet. So there's going to be all kind of things we're not used to. But, yeah, it's going to go away because the portal, and eventually Nebraska's going to be in on that to a larger extent. It's just the way you're going to live. Indiana and Colorado, I think, are changing the game right now in a way we don't know yet. But people are taking notes. They all made fun of Dion. Nobody made fun of Signetti. But now nobody's making fun of anybody because there could be 2 playoff teams with a whole bunch of transfers and a program that will have to reboot next year. We don't know how good they'll be, Indiana or Colorado. We'll have to do it all over again. But Matt might be the future. And so what we're seeing in Nebraska is sort of against the stream. And we'll see how that goes. But, yeah, I don't know, Evan. It's some Husker fans don't understand what that is. There's a younger generation that, walk-ons, whatever. But the older guys, they know.
What do you think, Sam?
As it relates to, super seniors and 60-year guys, I think, we're probably seeing the end of that. And that's based out of, the COVID year and then the 4-game redshirt thing. I think I would probably prefer, and some coaches have talked about this, let's just go to 5 full years of eligibility and get rid of the 4-year thing. And you play it out however you want to. You don't get a 6th year if you get hurt during one of the 5. Let's get rid of the injury years and all that. We have too many exceptions being made. I think the NCAA feels like it's on the ropes every single time somebody asks for one. I understand what Matt Rule was talking about related to Deshaun Singleton. I do, and the NCAA turned that one down. I think the super 6-year senior things are probably a thing of the past. As it relates to walk-ons, I think Tom's right that you can still add some walk-ons, sprinkle them in. But when you have a 105-man roster, you're just going to have to run practice differently. So the purpose that Nebraska had behind having an army of walk-ons was to create a practice system that developed, quite frankly, your scholarship players more consistently than a system where there's the first team is on the field and there you go. So, I don't know if Nebraska's going to be able to run its spring league the same way it did last year because they won't have as many guys on the roster. Side note, they're 5-5 having run the spring league. They were 5-5 last year having not run the spring league. So I am a little bit skeptical that the practice model has the same efficacy as it did 40 years ago. I am a little skeptical that you need a 150-man roster. I think a 120-man roster would be preferable to 105, but they're going to go with 105. And Nebraska will have to find a way to find the diamonds in the rough that exist in this state, maybe exist in North Dakota or Colorado. Get a couple of those guys here and develop those players. I still think a John Bullock can be on this football team. You just have to identify that guy is going to be John Bullock in 3 years and be able to do it by scouting in high school. The other thing that's going to happen is that some of these guys are going to end up going to FCS programs, and then they're going to come here.
Yeah.
They just won't be
they're
one
going to
plus
end
for
up
6.
here.
Yeah.
They're just going to go somewhere else for 3 years and develop before they get here.
That's the walk-on of the future.
Yeah, exactly. Big Sky, Missouri Valley. If you get 3 to 5 football players from those 2 leagues, combined, not each league. But if you got 3 to 5 football players from the Big Sky and the Missouri Valley combined each year, I think you'd have a pretty good football team, because there's good football being played in those leagues, and there are guys in those leagues that are really darn good players who also want to play around here. Not all the guys that are, down at Valdosta State, which is Division II, but some of the schools down there don't necessarily want to play at Nebraska. But a kid who plays at Montana wants to play here, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So they'll find ways. Like, it's a new age of the sport. It's a new era of the sport. Nebraska can adjust, and I think they will adjust. The program building piece, we'll talk about this in a couple of weeks when we're talking about recruiting. I think Matt Rule knows how to build a program. I think the program building part is not really in question. He's recruited a good class. He's got the CEO stuff. I think they do pretty well with NIL. It really is between the lines. And I think they needed to get better at practice, and I think they needed to get better in the games, and hopefully the Holgorsen hire does some of that, because from what I've seen, it's not the culture and it's not the program. It's the football. The football's got to get better on the offensive side of the ball, and it feels like they finally brought somebody in who his whole life is going to be dead. If they just decide to make him the coordinator, everything he does is going to be dedicated to making that offensive side of the ball better, and I'm not entirely sure that they had a coach like that prior to that. I'm just not sure. So Holgorsen's going to be the guy, and Rule said it. He's going to be the guy that's set against me. And I think Holgorsen's going to be the guy in the room that says, Matt, what about points? What about points? How are we going to score points? You cannot make the playoff without scoring points. How are we going to score points? And I think Rule needs somebody to challenge him like that, and that's why he brought Holgorsen in.
The rules are interesting. The change, it affects Nebraska from a historical perspective, but it also affects how Rule has built his programs previously, because he would identify a lot of those off-the-radar guys and develop them behind the scenes for 2 and 3 and 4 years. And now you're in a situation where you have a limited ability to do that, and you're at a program that cares more about winning now and immediately than anyone ever did at Temple or at Baylor. So, he has had his blueprint. How can he adjust that blueprint in the changing climate? I think that's the other fascinating thing to watch.
Agreed.
Senior Day, this is an exercise that we've liked to do on this podcast over the years. And Tom, you can join in or not if you want, but go through every senior on the roster and just a quick thought on, what do you remember about that guy? So Nebraska has 19 seniors listed, and a couple of them could, in theory, come back. Turner Corcoran could come back. Isaiah Nair could come back.
He's not coming back.
But let's just do rapid fire here. Javen Wright, what do you remember about Javen Wright? He's a senior.
Overcame blood clots to play. Is literally not practicing during the week and playing in the games because he loves the game. And I think that's a pretty cool testimony to have.
I'd say son of a Husker, one of the more thoughtful and effusive personalities on the team. Mm-hmm. John Bullock.
I've really liked his comments this year. They're terse, but they're insightful. And very few guys play harder, for sure. But he's an example of the Matt Rule development program. Matt Rule found him, put him in a different position. That's John Bullock.
Yep, agreed. That first story of him seeing Bullock at linebacker and saying or at safety and saying, why should this guy needs to be a linebacker, and the rest has been history. Tommy Hill, I'll go. I think of him as the guy, the first example of a player who Nebraska lost in the recruiting process out of high school, who arrived through the portal. And he was kind of that first reminder that, hey, just because you don't win out on a guy right away, don't give up, because he could come back in this new era.
Picked off Shadur Sanders for a pick 6.
Yep.
MJ Sherman.
Great quote. Cares about it. Loves it. Former 5-star. Last 2 games of his career coming up, make him his best. How about a sack in each one?
Yep.
That'd be help. That really help. Yeah.
Yep, passionate kid. When he was part of that group of Georgia players that came, one of the better headlines we had, the Corn Dogs, the guys coming over from Georgia to Nebraska. That was a fun moment.
Was that your headline?
I wish it were my headline. It was not. Deshaun Singleton.
3 different defensive backs coaches. Good kid. Really, really good kid. I think earned it all the way, went to JUCO. One of the last JUCO guys, I think. I don't think you're going to see Nebraska go JUCO much anymore. And so, great guy. And has played very hard, done all the things he asked him to do.
Yep, agree. Earned it on his own. Was not one of the more heralded acquisitions at the end of the Frost era, turned out to be a pretty good player.
That's right.
Isaiah Garcia Castaneda.
Why doesn't he play receiver? I don't understand. I don't get
know.
it. He was on the receiving
the
end of
punt
that
returner.
crazy Casey Thompson play in Ireland. Like
Yep.
the best play that Casey Thompson ever made. Garcia Castaneda made it. Since then, it's been up and down. He left the team for a while. He came back. I don't really know why he doesn't play receiver. He never plays. I'm not sure why.
Yeah, I think of him as that example as the guy who left and was like that first reminder that, hey, just because you're in the portal doesn't mean you have to go. And he did reconsider. He was one of the, I think it's 5% of people that enter the portal come back to their original team.
I'll remember him as IGC.
Yep, IGC.
How many receivers have we talked about over the years? 100. Anyway, go on.
Ben Scott.
Yeah. Transfer, stalwart center, quiet. Didn't like practicing on the Sunday after
That's
the Michigan
right.
game.
Yeah, he'd never done that. That's right. He was the guy who said that.
He didn't like that.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Brian Buschini. FCS edition's been developed into a pretty good punter. I'll remember asking him about the nuances of punting and how he used to say he just would kick wherever on the ball, and then it eventually became he aimed for the little spigot or whatever that you put the air into, whatever you want to call that. Like, that's been his thing. So watching his development in 3 years has been pretty impressive.
He's married.
Laid out against Rutgers.
Yeah, that's right. Yep, he's made a
And
tackle
came
or
back.
two.
And came
threw a
back.
pass.
Yep.
Guts.
Yeah, good arm. There you go.
Black shirt.
Guts.
A punter with a good arm. Nash Hutmaker,
Polar bear.
wrestler.
Wrestler. Great player. I mean,
Yeah, no
tough. All the things you want to be. Should have an NFL future.
Yeah.
I remember that you were right about him in the Super Six. A lot of us didn't have him in our Super Six, and you did.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
All right. How about that? There you
Yes.
go. Ramir Johnson.
Oh, a lot of injuries.
Regret.
Yeah.
Straight line speed.
Star-crossed a little bit.
Yeah.
Poet.
Michigan 2021.
Mm-hmm.
That was his highlight. That was a
Yep.
great game. Bryce Benhart.
Quiet. One of the handful of players who sued the Big Ten to play football. All-time leader in starts.
Yep, he's been around a long time.
Yes. He sued to play football. Remember that?
Oh yeah.
Jared Lambert coming out. Hey, what are you doing here? Yeah.
Good times. Certainly different times. Ty Robinson.
My favorite Husker. Resilience. Came here hyped up, went through different coordinators, different changes, and stayed. Could have left, stayed, and he came back with one goal, and he's not there yet, but I'll be thinking about him if they get there Saturday.
I think of his recruiting process. Scott Frost sent the entire staff down to his home in the Phoenix area. That was one of their best recruiting wins, beat out Alabama and some other schools. And then this year he's kind of gone into the Superman Clark Kent thing. He'll come out and talk after games wearing his glasses, and then he takes them off and he goes and owns in the game. So really insightful kid, good player, great player.
Yeah, I think he I'd say he's a little bit of a throwback, and by that I mean I think he actually really liked school and probably stayed in part because of school. Like, guys like that don't really want to start over at some other university. They want to finish it out here and get their degree and get it done and be a part of the place where they're at because they like their teachers and they like what they do. And I think that probably is one of the reasons he stayed. He's like, I like the school here. So I like him. Yeah.
Isaac Gifford.
Tough. Really tough. Tough-minded. He's played through a lot of stuff people don't even know about. So tough guy.
Yep. As to it was a challenge for him to come in after what his brother did. His brother was a great player, Luke, and he came in and made his own name. Very different person, had much more of an edge to him, but I think an equally powerful
If you told me he
leader.
was going to be a Navy SEAL, that wouldn't surprise me at all.
Agreed.
That would be the guy I'd say, well, there's your Army Ranger out of the bunch.
Turner Corcoran.
Run the damn ball hat.
Yeah. Took a risk on Nebraska out of high school. Could have gone to Michigan or a number of different places. Saw something in Nebraska and played a lot of games here.
He'll play in the NFL.
Isaiah,
He'll heal up, and he'll be in the NFL.
Isaiah Nayor.
He's here because of Mitch Cholowinski, the sports science guy who was at Texas and vouched for him. And look, Nayor's he's caught passes this year. He's done good things. So had a great play against UTEP, wasn't it? Northern Iowa. Yeah, he's
Illinois too.
Yeah, he's fine. His blocking hasn't been the best, but I don't have much of a. He's done a good job.
Deep threat, well traveled. When you think about his time at Wyoming as well, kind of an example of a guy who can rise through college football in the modern structure.
I mean, he did virtually nothing at Texas because he was hurt the whole time. So anything he did here was going to be a bonus. He's had a nice season. Not great, but nice.
Jamal Banks. A couple more.
Has probably been what people thought he would be here. I think I think Nebraska would have liked to have gotten a little more up to this point. So maybe the last 2 games of his career can be the statement makers. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like I think he's got a little more, and I'd like to see it in these last 2 weeks. But top notch personality. Immediately got involved in the community here. A real leader on that roster.
Yep, agreed. Micah Mazuka, Baylor to Florida to Nebraska. Almost chose Nebraska.
San Francisco.
Oh, yeah, San Francisco, yeah. Almost chose Nebraska over Florida a year ago.
Yeah.
Went to the Gators, came to Nebraska, was a starting interior lineman. A lot of
started. I mean, he's going to be probably started at left tackle the last 2 games.
Just stuff he's gone through, but just from a player perspective, one of the better linemen they've had in a few years here.
Oh, yeah. Also going to play in the NFL.
Yep. And Jalen Gramstad, former NAIA quarterback, gets a year at his dream school.
Yeah, 10 years he'll be, quarterback's coach somewhere. That's why he came here, was to learn. And he's probably gotten an even greater education from Dana Holgerson in the last 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody we call after the season and say, how'd that go?
Yes, and he'd have good thoughts. He would.
Yeah.
Before we get to picks, a couple quick thoughts on basketball. And it's a big weekend for volleyball as well. Volleyball against Wisconsin, but specifically for basketball, Nebraska, Creighton men on Friday night. So if you're a Jaysker man, or if you're just a Husker fan, that's going to be a heck of a 24-hour period there. What are you guys looking for in that game? Really big non-conference game for Nebraska, less so for Creighton as it continues to roll along. How do you guys size this one up?
Well, the ladies play first, and really sorry to see Potts' injury last night. I'd like to see these are 2 of the better Nebraska and Creighton women's teams, in the program history, and I wish they were playing in the big arena. So you want to see everybody at full strength for that, but that should be a hell of a game. 4 o'clock. The men, Creighton will be favored. Nebraska can't score all of a sudden. You get the Wisconsin kid going. I mean, he was running to shoot. He just took 6 shots on Sunday. Get him going. It sounded like our man Wilson's saying that they found an identity the last 10 minutes. So they want to get tough. They want to get physical underneath. That'll bother Creighton, but Creighton is going to run and shoot. They've just reloaded. Pop Isaacs is the real deal. The kid from Minnesota is the next great Blue Jay. Ashworth is playing great out of the gate. Of course, Kalkbrenner. They'll try to bother Kalkbrenner. They'll try to. That's what happened 2 years ago when they went into Omaha and won. But they had Sam Griesel was the reason they won that game 2 years ago. He, the point guard, he took over the whole pace of the game, and it really threw Creighton off. I don't know if they don't think they have that right now. So it'll be a wild atmosphere. It'll be fun, and but and this is Nebraska's last chance at a good non-conference win. So they'd be very helpful if you're going to be on the NCAA bubble to have a W like this. But I'm not counting on it. I've seen Creighton a couple of times in Nebraska, and Nebraska's still kind of struggling to find out who they are and the ball in the basket. So, but I've seen Juwan Gary do it before, so it'll be very interesting to see. I'm sure they'll put him on Isaacs, so we'll see how that goes. But it'd be fun.
Yeah, Nebraska's going to double Ron Kalkbrenner. They're going to try to get the ball out of his hands. In 4 games against Nebraska, Kalkbrenner has shot 70%, roughly, but he scored 13, 10, 12, and 13 points. What that tells you is they're not going to let him take the game over. They're going to double him, and they're going to force Creighton to make threes, and my hunch is Creighton will make them. But there's always the chance that they don't. And if they don't, then Nebraska's got a chance. And that's probably what it comes down to. Nebraska is getting to the line at a rate that we haven't seen Nebraska get to at the line in a very, very long time. I don't even know how long it's been because we don't have Ken Pom stats back to the 90s. But it's somewhere around the Eric Piatkowski, Derek Chandler era of getting to the line. I don't know if that's going to continue. I think Creighton doesn't foul. Nebraska can't count on getting to the line 30 times. They're going to have to find some other way to score. And at this point, I think Tom's right. I'm not entirely sure what they're waiting for with Connor Essegian. He has to play. Gavin Griffiths, too, a name I cannot say. Him, too. We'll see.
Nebraska needs to make it ugly. Last year they made the mistake of we're going to run with Creighton. We're going to play Creighton way, and they got run off the floor, their own floor. 2 years ago they didn't do that. They slowed it down. They tried to make it ugly. That's what they got to do again. And they had Derek Walker 2 years ago too. So they have to do that again. It's hard to know because neither team has played they played the run-up schedule. The games that just get you going, and now they're going to start playing a tougher competition. So, but yeah, if Nebraska plays slower, methodical to try to make it ugly, it might throw Creighton off. But I don't know. There's always that. That thing. Are they going to try to get caught up in their game and try to play their way? If they do, that'll be a mistake.
Should we go to picks?
Let's go to picks.
All right.
Evan is up by 5. He's 91-41. I'm 86-46, and Tom is 83-49. We start with Mississippi at Florida.
A little more interesting, but still Ole Miss.
I'll go Florida.
Sorry about that. My pen is not working. Now it is. Ole Miss for Evan, Florida for Tom, Ole Miss for me. Penn State at Minnesota. I'm going with Penn State. They have more to play for.
Penn State.
I'm going with Goldie.
I like it. We'll see. BYU at Arizona State. I'm going with the hot team, the Sun Devils. Get it?
Uh-huh.
Arizona State for me.
I'm going BYU.
BYU.
Arizona State.
For Tom. Colorado at Kansas. I think Kansas's magic wears off just enough this week. I'm going with the Buffs.
2 really emotional games for Kansas in a row. I'm going to go with Buffaloes as well.
I'm going KU. They're just getting started. It's all coming late, but they'll they've been the Big 12 is not happy with them, and they'll not be happy with them again on Saturday.
If Colorado loses that game, it does become evident that Arizona State then suddenly becomes the possibility to win the Big 12. Unbelievable. USC at UCLA in the Rose Bowl. I'm taking USC. I've seen both teams. I'll take the Trojans.
USC as well.
All right.
I'm going to go UCLA.
Separation Saturday, Tom. Here
Uniform game, helmet game, maybe the best combination of colors.
Yes.
Both teams wear their home uniforms. Army at Notre Dame.
Notre Dame.
Notre Dame for Tom. Notre Dame for Evan. Notre Dame for me. Alabama at Oklahoma. Boy, what a great matchup, right? They don't play much. Now they're going to. I like that.
Bama.
Tied and maybe not close.
I think so. I think it will be close, but I'll take Alabama. I feel like Oklahoma puts a lot of chips on this game, and they make it interesting. Vanderbilt at LSU. Things falling apart quickly in the Brian Kelly era. Quickly.
I thought he was safe, but now I think he'll be back next year.
I'm
But
not
boy,
sure.
he's on the edge. LSU one last stand.
What do you think, Evan?
I think LSU, that's going to be a tight one.
I'm going to go LSU as well. Yeah, I don't know that Brian Kelly makes a lot of allies down there with anybody. Illinois at Rutgers. I'm going to go with Illinois.
Illinois.
Yeah, Illinois.
All three of us on Illinois. Indiana at Ohio State.
Ohio State.
Ohio State for Tom.
Hoosiers.
Indiana for Evan.
Wow.
And Ohio State for me.
That'd be something.
It'd be great. It'd be awesome. Ohio State wins these games.
It wouldn't be great for Ryan Day.
No.
I would not.
Ohio State does not typically lose games like this, and I think they will win. NU-CU hoops. Creighton, Nebraska basketball.
Jays.
Yep, Creighton.
I took Iowa, Maryland off because I think we were all going to pick Iowa anyway. Or were you not going to pick Iowa?
I thought about it because of where it was played, but yeah, I was going to pick Iowa.
Iowa on the road's a tougher pick, but Iowa.
Nebraska, Wisconsin in football. I'm taking Nebraska. They do it. That's my take.
I can't pick it until it happens, so I got to go Wisconsin.
I'm going to pick Lucy. Wisconsin.
All right. Here we go.
It's going to be
That
fun.
happens on Saturday, man. That stadium's going to be grumbling.
We've seen it before.
The pressure is going to be real.
Like I said, we're either going to cover a celebration or else a wake.
Well, as you said, I mean, man, over these last two games, there's so much at stake. 5-7, 7-5. Maybe they split the difference and they go 6-6. Hope you guys enjoy the game on Saturday, Nebraska's last home game. A lot of hoops, volleyball match, a lot of fun. Hope you guys enjoy it. Thanks for watching. This is the Pick 6 podcast with the World-Herald.